So hello everyone, I'm Shafali from University Living. I'll be your host and moderator for the session today. Before I start with anything in the session, I would like to give you some news on quarantine because I'm sure many students are going to ask this. So I'm just bringing it up to the notice. Any visitor who is planning to go to UK have to take a quarantine test or COVID-19 test in next 48 hours. And they need to quarantine until the test results are negative. That's number one. The good news about it is that UK ministers are already arranging and securing 114 million more vaccines for the next 2 years in response to take care of the Omicron variant. So it looks like that UK is all braced up to face any kind of situation. So anyone who's planning to go to UK in 2022 should not, think about over it. Don't overthink that the whole point is. Okay, so today's session is actually to brace you up with the new normals in the UK. Of course, many things have changed post-COVID. And for that, to address all these concerns, we have amazing panel of people from different UK universities, our accommodation partner, and of course, our Shraddha from University Living. I'll just introduce our panelists. And when I'm doing the introductions, just say a little wave to the attendees. I believe they'll see the face after the day. Mishi Sardana, Recruitment Advisor, India, Global Engagement Office, Queen Mary University of London. Hi, Mishi.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Thank you for having me today. Looking forward to a very healthy conversation. Thank you.
Same here, same here. Anushri Sanjay Patil, Recruitment Advisor, India, University of Brighton.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the University Living webinar today. I hope we have a great discussion. Looking forward to the event.
Great. Rachita Gaglani, International Student Advisor, University of Surrey.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on the region you're in. Thank you so much for organizing this session, and I hope it's useful to you all.
We are hoping that again. Noman Naik, Senior Conversion Officer, University of Portsmouth.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, all of you, for joining, and I hope we can clear your queries and doubts in this session.
David Seymour, Head of International Business Development, IQ Student Accommodation.
Hi, everyone. I'm based in England, in London, so it's a good morning from me, but I'm sure it's a good afternoon stroke evening for everybody else, but looking forward to the session.
Same here, David. Shraddha Padre, Business and Partnership Manager, University Living.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session. Thank you very much for taking out the time to attend this. I hope to definitely share a lot of valuable insights, but also get a lot of valuable insights to this session. So welcome, everybody.
So thank you, guys. Thank you and welcome, everyone, attendees and panelists. And information is for attendees. If you have any question for the panelists, you can just address that question in the Q&A session or in the chat box. We'll be addressing all the questions post 5 o'clock. And we can do a one-on-one, like you can just directly ask them on the Q&A. You can tag them if that's the case, if any university specific question you have. Now, I'm not going to bore you more. I'm going to start it and let's dive in. I'll start with you, Noman, because you have, I believe you have graduated in 2019 itself, right?
Yeah.
So I would like to know that what factors make UK as, a leading study destination among maybe Indian Asian students?
I had my own factors of choosing UK. Firstly, the course finishes in 1 year, which is like one of the biggest factor. So we don't, and yet, this might be the question in the minds of many students that is it authentic or is it something which can be accepted in India or any part of the world? So yes, it is. And even though it's 1 year course, but it's quite hectic. So, it requires a lot of attention and concentration to finish the course. So I think that was one factor. Then again, UK, I feel, is very welcoming country compared to other options which are available in the market. So again, that was another factor. I had few of my relatives who were there also who were there. These were the convincing factors. Fees was also less compared to other universities in other countries, and yeah, I think the beauty of UK.
That's UK has always been famous for their scenic beauty and all that. Anybody else who would like to add to this, because I'm sure every university get different set of students, and anyone who's would like to add, please share your views on that.
So I would like to add that UK is really diverse. It offers, it's very multicultural, and it offers a lot of different aspects to, how you can develop yourself. So that's a very attractive thing. And students get to make a friend practically from every part of the world. And that's very fascinating, knowing different cultures and get to explore so much more about yourself and other things. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mishi. Okay, so we have established that UK has been. David, you want to say something?
I was just going to add, when we're talking to all the students coming, a lot of the time, the UK is very much a land of opportunity, and yes, you've got to work hard, but you can make your own way, and it's very, very compelling. The UK's education market is second to none, and very much understanding that all students now can have a post-study work visa and stay in the UK for 2 years longer, and that gives good career opportunities, and to get on the career ladder, to bolster the CV for if students do want to go back to India and will go back to India, then their CV is very, very strong to be able to go and look at career opportunities within India. So I think there's a lot, and also we've got cricket. That's the other thing I was.
Right. You have pictured it, you presented in a very well mannered. So as you guys have mentioned that UK has different attributes. So many courses are also very famous in UK, and people do to go over there for research, medical purpose, and others, and of course other courses. Has this trend changed? Any other course has came into demand because of in this new academic session? Maybe pandemic has to do something with the selection choices. Something of that sort has happened. Rachita? Okay, Noman, you want to share?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to share about this thing. UK specifically is known for this area. Like, you get a lot of niche courses, very niche courses in UK. So I think that is something which a student, if a student is looking for, let's say, for example, petroleum and gas engineering. So UK has got a course for that. So I think in that way, it has always been there for students. And talking about the pandemic, I think a lot of digital courses are coming up. So digital business management and these kind of courses, which were already there, but now the students are going more for these kind of courses. So it's coming out, it's trending more these days. And yeah, I think to be specific, no the course because of pandemic has come up, but I think it's a phenomenon now about data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all these kind of courses. So UK has a specific course for, like, if we can say MSc artificial intelligence. So there is a
Right.
course in UK, MSc data big data analytics. So there is a course for that. So this is the trend right now in the computing field, and I think that is there in UK.
Okay, Anushri, you would like to add something to it?
Yeah, so as a university, we have a number of programs that we offer students specifically in the health sciences department and even in the social sciences department. We've seen, since the pandemic, we've seen a large number of students applying for courses in pharmacy. And at least with Brighton, we do offer two types of programs in pharmacy. So we have programs that will support students who want to go ahead and get a PhD. So we have MRes, research-oriented programs, but we also have programs that are OSPAP recognized. So students can, once they complete their program, they can also come stay back in the UK and practice as a pharmacist. So this is one of the field that we've seen growing and expanding since the pandemic. We also have other courses available at Brighton, like, that are more focused on marketing and management, because obviously since the pandemic, things have gone digital and people are exploring different means that they can use to market themselves. So all of the marketing programs at Brighton are, you can say, running sold out, for the lack of a better word.
Okay, I think I assume that's a very good news then.
If I can actually just
Yeah,
add a
Rachita.
little to my colleagues.
Please.
Thanks. The fact is, some universities in the UK also give you the 2-year option And this can be correlated to the first question that was asked, that what are the similarities, or why should someone look at the UK? Because we do have a very common system between the UK and India. Traditionally, a postgraduate degree in the UK is for 1 year, but you can also have a 2-year program where you can sandwich a year-long internship. For a student who is looking for a postgraduate program right after the undergraduate, it's a really great idea to pick such a program. Of course, you get the practical experience, but in the long run, you can convert that into a full-time job opportunity.
Right.
So there are multiple options for you when you look at studying in the UK.
So, of course, college life has always been better, whether it is in a domestic country or is in overseas. And of course, international experience makes it more, the learning curve over there is better, to be honest. That's something which I believe. So that, as you said, that UK courses, of course, there are amazing courses. Now, I would like to understand, when colleges are open, then there are many, fairs and academic events are arranged so that student can participate into that. When pandemic hit, what kind of activities you guys have done to take care of that whole thing on a virtual level? Because hybrid has been the new thing actually. And I believe this new coming academic year, only hybrid will be the new way of learning the whole thing. This question is open to all the uni reps, and please go ahead and share your experience, how you guys manage the student welfare part, and how did you keep them interacted with the whole university experience. Mishi, Anushri, anyone, Rachita?
You want me to go first? Oh, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I'll start with one of the aspects and each one can pick up the other. If I can give you an example of the University of Surrey, when you came in on campus, of course, not only in the pandemic, but even otherwise, you did have a buddy on campus. So your buddy was your support all throughout, right from telling you which SIM card you should pick up, which restaurant you should go and eat, to very informative aspects like who's the professor going to be more supportive than the other, and a lot more other details. You would have a support system on campus. Of course, after the pandemic, and this is fortunately, everybody has been giving a lot of importance to mental health. And I must say this, that all universities in the UK do have a very specific department where they can support you. And nobody knows about all this, so they don't pass around your information. So you should reach out to the universities to get more information about this. I think Anushri, Mishi, or Ralph can talk about another.
Mishi, you would like to add something here?
Thanks. Yes, definitely. So I try to add, UK universities are very accommodating and supporting to the student community. And like Rachita mentioned rightly, there's always an advice and counseling and well-being aspect of students, and their mental health and their health overall is our priority. So we do, when the pandemic hit, we did offer care packages to students who were caught up in that situation. And also overall, we try to support them by offering them like smaller interactions where they can still get the quality of learning and yet attend the recorded lectures and virtual lectures as well. And as we are a campus-based university, the campus is always open. So there were always protocols followed, whether it was in terms of the library or the labs, etc. So yes, I think student health and well-being is the top priority, and obviously the learning aspect has drastically changed and has come out really well in terms of adapting to the new version of living. So yes, very, very proud of accommodating this change in our teaching.
That's really great. And now, as you guys have mentioned that many changes have happened during this post-pandemic time, I would like to come to you, Anushri, in case that so many post-pandemic policy amendments have been made, right, before and after and all that. What kind of amendments in policies have been made at Brighton in regards to these students, so that they can benefit from them?
All right. So during the pandemic, we understood that students would not be able to, submit letters of recommendations or get their original transcripts and stuff submitted in time to get their offers rolled out to them. So the admissions team came up with a decision that, for students who have provisional documents, we would be happy to, make offers on that. For students who are unable to submit letters of recommendation because they can't travel to get those letters of recommendation from their institutions or their companies, we were happy to receive the contact details of these people. This is a particular thing that we will continue even post-pandemic, that, you just submit the contact details of your referees and we as a university will get in touch with them. As an applicant, the only thing you would have to do is just follow up. So if you've had to submit 2 letters of recommendations, you just need to follow up with your professors or your work colleagues and just get them to respond to the email. There's obviously enough number of reminders sent from the university so that students have time to prepare for this document. We also supported students with scholarships. We reduced our initial deposit. Hopefully that 2022 will turn out to be much more positive for universities as well as for students. We are looking to reinstate our initial deposit. So earlier it was 3,000 pounds that the students needed to pay in order to receive their CAS, which we had reduced to 1,500 pounds. Assuming that things will go back to normal, we'll reinstate 3,000 pounds, but obviously that will be well communicated to the students and much in advance so that they can make provisions for this initial deposit that they need to pay. Another thing that the university did is they also offered deposit refunds. So if in case the student was very keen, has paid the deposit, has completed all of the procedures, but for whatever reason is unable to travel to the university, we're happy to refund their money to them. We're happy to also accommodate their request of deferring the offer letter to the next intake instead of canceling their application and them having to apply all over again. So most of these things we will continue on even post-pandemic, but a lot of things have changed definitely since the pandemic has struck.
Right. And I'll come to you, David, on this. I'm pretty sure many things must have changed at IQ as well. Would you like to enlighten us few things post-pandemic, how you guys handled the whole COVID situation, and what are the new things coming up at IQ?
Yeah, so I mean, it was a horrendous time for everybody across the world, and we took matters very, very seriously. And one thing that we did very, very soon. So when we first saw COVID and we had to go into lockdown, we had 30,000 students living with us. So we did everything possible to secure their well-being, first and foremost. We repatriated as many students as we could. So a lot of our domestic students, we were managed to repatriate, and we did not charge them for the remainder of the year. And that was a very big financial undertaking for us, but we thought that was morally the correct thing to do. With most of our international students, we understood that they were stuck. They were stuck in the UK. But what we did was we set up a number of different sort of new protocols. We set up food deliveries. We looked after every student from a health check point of view. We understood that the digital domain was so important, and we were able to do social events digitally and online events. So we were doing suppers, we were doing everything you could be doing in terms of engaging with the students to make sure everybody was okay. And as we came out of that, we've put various different safety protocols in thereafter. So we've obviously upgraded all of our cleaning and sanitization of every communal area. We have made sure that there's less hand-to-hand contact, so all of our students can actually we have an app. And so when somebody books with us, the app, they can do a fast check-in without actually having to, we're meeting and greeting them safely, but you don't have to have sort of physical contact if you don't want to have physical contact. So, we have screens with regard to all of our reception areas are shielded, and masks are wear from our teams. But, overall, it's very much to do with the emotional well-being of the students. The other part of that is, everyone sort of talked about cancellation policies and things like that. we didn't have to change our cancellation policy. We have mitigating circumstances associated with all of our students that are booking with us. So, when we talk about book with confidence, and you'll probably see it on the screen behind me, that is what we mean. We're looking after the student and the well-being. So if the student is unable to travel through fear or any form of COVID reasons, or government sort of border controls and things like that, they can cancel their booking. Secondly, if they don't get the exam grades, they can cancel their booking, no problems at all. If you don't get the visas, you can cancel your booking. So it's, and even deferring your studies until the following year, you can cancel your booking. So we basically made sure that the student was absolutely first and foremost in our hearts and minds. And obviously, and the safe and security, we are the only operator across the UK to have 24/7 manned security, and that was very, very important to us, to make sure that there was comfort for all of the students. So there's a whole plethora of things that we do and continue to do to make sure that we are offering the best service, and we work very closely with the likes of Relate, Headspace, Shout, Ethical Angels, and all of the universities, and all of our teams are trained to understand the triggers associated with isolation and mental health and well-being. So these are the things that we've put in place. Some have always been there, some we've just heightened, but overall we work very, very closely with the overall student community and the universities to make sure that their first year or second year or third year in the UK is the best yet.
That's really great, David. And 24/7 security, I believe that's a really great point for any student, and for the parents who are sending this kids outside. That gives a very huge sense of relief to them. So coming back to our uni reps, I would like to, David, you want to say something? I'm so sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with you, sorry.
Yeah, there's a little lag. So I'll come back to my uni representatives over here. So guys, during this post-pandemic thing and the pandemic thing, many students are very much concerned about their career options, which anyone could be. So what kind of guidelines or what kind of points or inputs you would like to give them, how they can boost up their options if they're studying at UK? How to proceed with this whole process? Many students apply late in their career journey and everything. Noman, if you want to start with that.
Yeah, definitely I can help in this area. When I was there, it's not very long, but yeah, in 2018, I applied to different universities, and the first and foremost mistake which I made was I started applying very late, because that is how we usually do in India. We finish our course, get a degree, and then we start making applications for the jobs and stuff. But that is not the case in UK, and most of the companies where I would have definitely landed up if I would have applied on the right time. I missed it just because of the deadlines, because most of the deadlines were 5-6 months before. So this whole process of getting or landing up on a decent job takes 5-6 months. So students, firstly, they are very flabbergasted. They've gone to a different country, and picking up with the pace and everything, accent and stuff. So that is fine, we understand that, but definitely a student should start applying, or at least start the process of polishing the CV, because the CVs are different, completely different. So how we have CVs in India. So it's like, we have pictures, hobbies, marital status. They don't need it. UK employers don't need all these details. So they're more into technical skills, what kind of skills we have, and we also need to define that. The student needs to define why. Okay, if I say I have analytical ability, I have good analytical skills. So student needs to define why they're saying that. So there should be something which justifies why they're saying that in the CV itself. So so there is a whole process of designing the CV, and they need to change it for every single application. So it is not like how we do it here. So we make one CV, stick it to every Indeed.com or Naukri.com and stuff. So that is not the case. You'll have to change it every single time. So this takes a lot of time, and for that they should at least start by at least after 3 or 4 months, once they're gone over there. So this is the very first and foremost thing which is very important. Then second thing, a breather for the students who are going now. I think when I was there, it was very difficult to get a job because I know this thing is there. This rumor, I would say, is amongst all the students, or fear that they will not end up getting a job because UK is very strict. It does not give visa, and a lot of things. But again, getting a job is not very difficult. So it was a bit difficult before because when we used to make application for jobs, there was this question in the job application, do you have right to work in UK? And we were forced to say no because we never had the right to work. We only had 4 months.
Okay.
So we were forced to say no in that section. And the automation system automatically rejects these kind of students because the employers wanted someone who had right to work in UK, and they didn't want to give the visa and get into those kind of process and all. So now, fortunately, with this graduate immigration route in picture, the students can, and trust me, this is taking only one day or 24 hours to 48 hours in the student who are applying for GIR. A good student completed the course and attended lectures and everything properly. If applied for GIR, they're getting GIRs in even 48 hours. So I think once they get the GIR, they can easily say they have right to work in UK for 2 years, and then they will definitely go to the next stage. So I think the employment prospects have increased drastically, and trust me, it was not very difficult even before. I will say it was difficult when when you're making an application, but you need to be sincere. And I must say I have applied to around hundreds of places every single day, looking for that email and always saying we regret to inform you, unfortunately. We used to look that in the email, but I ended up working in Amazon also, and then I worked with university. So all you have to do is just keep on applying and start applying soon. So after 3 or 4 months.
Great personal experience, I must say. I'll ask the same question with our other three panelists. I would just like to add one thing. If there is any program that you guys are organizing at your university to kickstart, help students to kickstart their career, please elaborate on that program as well. Anushri, Mishi, Rachita, anyone? Anushri? Yeah.
So starting from 2020, what Brighton has done is that we've, because of the change in GIR rules and students being able to stay back in the country and work, the university decided to start some programs that would boost them, this particular move for them, which would support them in their opportunity to stay in the UK. So if you go to see all of our programs at the master's level in the business school, and some of our programs from the computing school. So this would be like user experience design, data analytics. As long as you're joining us for a September intake, we are offering you these programs with a sandwich here. So you can stay back in the country and extend your, so you'll be essentially get a 2-year student visa where you can study for 1 year and the other year would be dedicated to work in the UK. And as a university, we would support this decision for this decision that you've made. So essentially the career service team, which is free of cost to students who are studying at Brighton, they would support them in making their CVs, their cover letters. They'll be organizing job fairs on this on campus, and they'll also be supporting students in finalizing the different companies that they can work with. So this will be a complete handheld process till we ensure that the student has received the placement. And I think, as Rachita had mentioned earlier in the session, that this is a great step for students to find a way to extend their contract and stay back in the country, provided obviously they're deserving to stay back in the country.
Right. I'm sure that's gonna be there. Rachita, you want to add something to this?
Yes, I do. So, like Noman mentioned, you have to start very early. If I can give you an example of the University of Surrey, we have 3 career fairs for students each year. Our first career fair is 10 days in the program. The only reason being that internationally, you have to build your network and your connections that it eventually supports you to help you find a job opportunity. Also, I am very confident that a lot of universities in the UK do have a career and support team. Please reach out to them from day one, because you cannot wait for your program to end and then look for a job. You may have a job 8 months prior to when you graduate, and that's completely fine.
Okay, great, great. Mishi, just I'll come back to you because I am asking you guys this question like one-on-one because I'm sure there are different students who are looking for different university. And if anybody is looking for Queen's Mary, Brighton, Surrey, or Portsmouth, they'll have this information with them. So, Mishi, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Like my colleagues mentioned, there's definitely a career and support team. And what I've learned from my personal experience is that you have to be persistent and you cannot give up. And one more thing, which Noman mentioned, I would just put it a little differently. You have to be a little creative about approaching for a job. They're looking for different qualities at different jobs. So like most universities, we also organize a vast variety of career fairs, alumni workshops, and industry discussions as well, where they can meet and interact and, like Rajita pointed out, build upon your network right from the early stages so they can understand their strengths and weaknesses and explore the market. I also wanted to add that students can do part-time work. They can work 20 hours. So this gives them an excellent opportunity to find out what they are good at and learn different skills and expand on their network. So that's really comes handy, be it working in the campus or be working in the area around that. Definitely gives them a good understanding of how UK market works. So yes, I think David wanted to mention something as well. Over to you.
Yeah.
I think, as an accommodation provider, we also link up with the universities and we run career sessions and application sessions and things like that. But I think the key again is persistency, but try to be creative. And in the digital world now, when we see hundreds and thousands of CVs, they all look the same. The applications all look the same. If you could try to make them slightly different, do a little video, or it's not for everybody, but you'll find a sort of a bit of a niche to stand out from the crowd, and that's a real key point. Don't give up. There are opportunities. There's huge amounts of opportunities, and I think if you can show that you're willing to go the extra mile and to sort of do what it takes to get that job, then and I think you're going to set yourselves apart from the rest.
Right. Well said, David. Actually, sincerity and persistency is the key to anything. And I also, emphasize on that you should apply early. You should not wait for day 11th to apply for anything. And on this point, I'll come to you, Shraddha. Why it is important and why we do emphasize on this thing that the student should book an accommodation early. Why is that important? From a student, you should actually educate everyone on that. Just like job application, why accommodation is so important. And booking early, of course.
I love that question, Shefali, and have a lot to say about it. But I think primarily why it's important for a student, I think one, understand the importance of accommodation in this entire process or this journey of study abroad. Once you've identified that, I think it's imperative that you book early in the year for several reasons, starting with getting multiple options to choose from, because as you get closer to the intake, of course, places are filling up and they're getting booked, and the number of options will keep reducing. And so primarily it's important that you have a lot of options to choose from. Secondary, of course, even the rents go up. So closer to the intake, the properties start getting more expensive because of the availability going down, but the demand going up. So of course, and then there are the flash offers, and then there are the discounts. So if you want to avail any of these things and want better options and more options and criterias, properties that fit your criterias, it's imperative that the student, as soon as they have their offer letter and have clarity with which university they're going to and which city they're going to, start the process of at least looking at accommodations earlier in the year.
Right. David, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, and it's just to back up in terms of it's linked to sort of booking early, and again, sort of mentioning the booking with the confidence. Now, what we have is we've seen the Indian market over the years only booking when they've got the visas in hand and got everything all sorted, and by that time there's limited availability. and the availability that you'll have will be more expensive. So most operators work on what is called a dynamic pricing method. So it's like a flight. If you book it early, you get it cheaper. If you book it late, you're going to be the last seat. It's going to be the most expensive seat. Also, at the beginning of the season, when you're looking to book early, you'll get the better incentives and the overall choice associated. But the reason why we have things like Book with Confidence in place is that we know that 98% of T4 visas applications are approved. So it's actually educating the marketplace, educating the students and families that actually it's fine. Even if you are the unlucky 2% that don't get your the visa application, as an operator, you're covered. So book early, take advantage of that. And if you don't get your exam grades, if you don't get the visa, all those things fall apart and it's not right for you, it's not a problem. You're not held into a long-term contract with IQ, that is. There's other operators that don't do that, I have to say, but I don't believe that University Living would be recommending those operators to you in that instance. So, it's book with confidence, but book early. Otherwise you will be disappointed. And we get thousands and thousands of students that we can't take in. We would love to take them in, but we can't take them in because they're too late.
Right. Well said. Mishi, I would like to come to you. So, of course, you guys are in touch with students and parents on a daily basis, all the UniReps. I would like to understand what is the student sentiment currently in terms of going ahead with their study plans, maybe at UK or overseas.
Thank you, Shefali, for this question. UK has seen a tremendous growth in the last 1 year. I think there are a lot of contributing factors, graduate route being one of the most popular ones. So student sentiment and parent sentiment overall is very excited. We did see a dip towards last year when they were worried about the safety, but I think the government, UK government and the universities have made tremendous progress and taken several steps to ensure that it is safe to come to UK. So overall, the communities that I have interacted with are very, very excited and are looking forward to, getting a grasp of their education and, taking their careers further. So yes, overall, I think it's a good time for UK and good time for students to go to UK.
Right. Rachita, would you like to add something to it?
Yes, I would too. I would like to, sorry. I just ate that word.
It's okay.
If I can actually just give you a feedback of the students who've gone the last couple of intakes, they've been very happy. They haven't been disappointed at all. In fact, they do believe that there's a lot of support provided by universities. In fact, there are job opportunities. If I can just give you an example of a student who came in the Feb intake where UK was honestly in a bad situation with regards to the pandemic. The student did manage to get a job opportunity, although she was in India and was looking for the Feb intake. So the fact is that I don't think anybody has been disappointed. It's a lot more to do with your efforts and then obtaining a result and not sitting and waiting for the food to arrive to you.
Right. So, actually, there are always two sides of every situation. As we can see the bad side, it is published very well, but I'm pretty sure there is a very positive side to it. And as you mentioned, that universities have started putting more efforts to take care of the students in every manner, whether it's career, whether it's mental wellness and all that. So that's actually a very brilliant thing. And Noman and Anushri, if you would like to share some insight from your university on the same point.
When you said universities trying to put in more effort, these things were already there. It is being highlighted now because the need has arisen. Or else, I didn't knew when I was studying in the university. I didn't knew about the mental health and other areas which right now there are more services which are coming up. The University of Portsmouth has their own COVID testing centers, so that the student can get themselves tested and also most the courses which are courses have been divided in a way like the modules have been divided in a way. The ones which can be taken online are taken online. The ones which can be taken offline, they're directed in a way. So it's like a one way now in the university, where the students can enter from one way only and can't exit from there, and the other way is just for the exit. So it's, it's so they're taking these type of steps now. But yeah, the well-being about the students was always there,
Of
be it in
course.
terms of academics,
Hmm.
career, be it in terms of religion also. So I have been there and I think it's there in most of the universities. So that there is always a multi-faith room where they can go and practice the prayers and stuff. And also there are different Indian societies. So when they're there and they feel homesick or something like that, it's the society is there to help them out in the times of festivals like Diwali, Eid, Holi, and so we do celebrate Holi properly with colors. So in UK also. So I think yeah, all these things matters a lot. It has this thing gone down because of the pandemic situation, but yeah, university has tried, or most of the universities have tried their best to create a safer environment and still practice these kind of traditions over there to help the student out, to keep them mentally fit.
Right. Anushri?
Yes, I would. I mean, nothing different from what Noman said. Everything has always been on the university's mind, like, mental health, student well-being, student support, student safety. They're making sure that the students feel welcome. All of these have been always on any UK university's priority list, because international students are a huge priority for the university, because if anything happens to you, like, if you're from the same country, you can just go back to your house. It won't be that much of an issue. But for an international student, it would mean booking a flight ticket. It'll start from going to the airport, finding the flight ticket, going to your home country, and then finding a way to your house. It's not that easy for an international student. So international students are a huge priority for any university, irrespective of the country. And nothing additional has been done, but yes, whatever we used to do has now been highlighted. For example, a lot of universities, I'm sure, now have a mental health week, which is being more largely promoted, so that students are aware of it. Instead of it just being something that's there on campus, it's being promoted as well. I'm sure different universities will have different concepts of going about with it. Brighton has a way of inviting students to come meet animals on campus, so I'm sure other universities will have something similar. So we do have like a dog week where you can come meet dogs on campus, so you can walk them on campus, depending on what level of dog person you are.
Right. If I am over there, I would love that whole week with as many of as dog possible.
I'm sure that's the case for most students.
Yeah, I'm sure of that. So as well said, guys, of course these things have been there, but pandemic has shown many different things in a different picture and different light altogether. Now these things have come under light, and people have started acknowledging the importance of these things. Actually, initially many students might have ignored these practices because they used to think, okay, we can go for a clubbing and yash party and all that, but now they do realize that what is the importance of interaction and all that kind of thing. I would like to understand one more thing, which is actually a question among most of the students who are planning to come to UK. What is the cost of living as a student, if I want to understand? Shraddha, of course, this is where the accommodation part, you and David can definitely help, but I would like to ask the UniReps as well in regards to this thing. Mishi, if you can just tell us a little bit, you are in London. So
Thanks. Yes, London is definitely considered slightly more expensive. Having said that, there are a lot of student discounts available, and I'm sure Norman will second that. It's a very, very budget-friendly country. You can from gaining discounts on your travel to all the way doing your shopping and retail therapy. And nowadays, even on food, Groupon, you go by Groupon. So yeah, a lot of different advantages as well. And students, I believe if they plan well ahead, then they can stick to their budget. Like previously mentioned, planning their accommodation well in advance would get them a good deal. And also, if you try to stay near your university, that would also save you on the travel costs as well. So yeah, these are my 2 cents. I'll forward it on to other colleagues.
Yeah, I think everyone can share their input on this, because cost of living is a question that I'm pretty sure you must have come across in this for this question like multiple of times. Rachita, you are from Surrey, Guildford, right?
Yes, that's right. So, of course, we do have proximity to London, which is about 35 minutes away. But living at Guildford, where the university is located, is 40% cheaper than living in the city of London. Of course, you have to keep in mind that the UKVI does make sure that you need to have a certain set of amount in your bank account when you're applying for your visa. But can I tell you something? Reaching out to current students and speaking to them is a good source of understanding your living expenses, and of course, in the long run, making and start to build your connection.
Right.
Someone who's studying and living at Guildford spends somewhere between £7,000 to maximum £7,500. Yeah, and do look out for ways to save on your money when you're a student, and there are a million options.
Right. As already Mishi has shared, you have shared that there are multiple offers going on for a student, ID card, I believe. Noman, as Mishi said, that you will definitely second.
So, the student card has been the best card which we had. When I was studying, I was studying in Sheffield. So Sheffield had this thing. I don't think so any other city has it. The buses, you can travel in bus for 90, £1. For during my time, it was just £1. You just take a £1 ticket and you can roam all around in Sheffield just in £1. So, but yeah, these kind of offers are always there in most of the universities. In most of the cities. So that is there. Apart from that, while these guys were talking about shopping, food, all these places now have student discounts. All you need to carry your student card. That's it, and you get a lot of discounts. Expenses, I would say, the whole thing over there is dynamic. If we talk about, so I see people asking questions about public transport being
Yeah.
expensive in London. So yeah, it can be expensive if you're going at the very last moment. But if you plan it accordingly, be it National Express, be it train line. So all these apps are there where you can always see what kind of price is nominal, and what you can pay, and it goes. Sometimes it may go down also. Sometimes, so you have to plan it properly. So I think if we take into account these things, planning is more important. When even if we go out for shopping, a quick tip for the students who are here, like make a list and go. Don't just go and buy, because then you will buy impulsively and end up taking 5 or 6 sauces of pastas when you need only one. So all these there are different places also, like Aldi, Lidl, where you can get the same thing at a cheaper rate. So yeah, I think it's not very expensive. Even London, if we plan it accordingly, it's not very expensive. If we look for good places, it's not very expensive. Portsmouth is like 1.5 hours away from London, but I think again the accommodation compared to London is very cheap, and the average cost which I have spoken to with a lot of students comes around 7.5 thousand pounds, including everything. So yeah, and one more tip which I wanted to highlight, again, learn cooking. So learn how to cook, because in that way you will save a lot.
So I believe that you're a good cook, Noman, right?
I wasn't,
just-
but
Just
my
wanted to
mom-
add that
Yeah,
Noman is a
Michelle.
brilliant cook. I could not resist.
Oh.
Sorry, guys. He makes the best biryani. So
But
definitely.
on this
I
note,
learned-
we should just ask. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut it off. But on this note, we should just ask students what's the national dish of UK. And I hope the panelists don't support students.
We will not. If anyone can, please.
Yeah, and don't Google it.
Okay, so the question is open to all the attendees. Please go ahead and answer it. Anushri, we have already established that Noman is a brilliant cook, and
Oh,
David
you got
and
the
others.
answer.
Yeah, whenever either Noman is coming to UK or he's come to Delhi, I'm sure Noman has open invite for everyone to join him over biryani.
I'll
Yes,
definitely
for
take you
sure.
up on that. Definitely take you up on that. One thing I was just going to add,
Yeah.
in terms of cost of living and things like that, it's what you make of it. It's like any other city in any other country in the world. What we do in IQ, we welcome all of the students and we understand what their budgets, what they like, what they dislike, and everything else. And we do sessions to help them settle in, show them where's the best place to buy the food from. We do cookery sessions. We help with all of those sort of things to make sure that you can become as self-sufficient as possible. With regard to transport, it's again, in places like London, you can walk to most places. Vast majority of our accommodation is very, very close to the universities, so it's walking distances. But there are bikes and there's buses, there's all sorts of transport links that are very cheap. And so you don't, yes, you could get a taxi and spend a fortune. You could go to the sort of the top restaurants and spend a fortune. You could go to all of the top supermarkets, spend a fortune, but it's what you make of it. And to sort of welcome everybody. Everybody can have, depending on what level of costing that they're wanting to degree. But I think the planning is very important, and actually knowing what to do is an important thing. So that's where we step in and help those students as well.
Right. Anusha, I would come to you. Everybody has mentioned about all the sales, but I think the biggest sale of the whole year is missed, the Black Friday. So apart from the Black Friday discount, do students get a lot more discount because of the student card?
So Black Friday is more of an American concept from what I understand, and UK generally functions on Boxing Day, which is the 26th of December, a day after Christmas. And that is a huge event in itself, because you will find students and other locals lining up shops from 4 o'clock in the morning, depending on which store they want to go and what they want to buy. But in general, yes, students do have discounts on a multiple number of things when they're going to buy. It's just that the students need to be aware of which shops they need to go to, because in the UK, you do have like tier system when it comes to even departmental stores. So cheapest, decent quality food would probably be available at like a Lidl or an Aldi. The most expensive, the most exotic kind of things would probably be available like at a Waitrose. So the students just need to budget themselves. I'm not saying that you need to always eat from a subsidized area, but you can always, try to buy food items that are on the cheaper side from here, and more exotic things that you might want to eat once in a way. You can buy it from like a Waitrose or something else.
Right. So Boxing Day it is. Yes, David, please.
I would tend to agree. However, Black Friday is big.
Yeah.
It is big, but don't get caught out. It's like any sale. A lot of these companies either inflate their prices to show a deal. Their sales all year long. If you want a bargain, you can find a bargain any day of the week. Don't just wait for Boxing Day. Don't wait for Black Friday. What tends to happen is a lot of UK operators won't do a lot of sales up for 2 weeks before Black Friday, and then so it's actually doesn't work very well for a retailer either. So there aren't as many bargains as you might think in Black Friday or the Boxing Day sales. That's sort of dissipated over the years with the likes of Amazon having, cutting prices all the time and things like that. So if you want a bargain, you can find bargains all over the place at any time of the year. I think it's like most retailers, unfortunately.
So right. So just not limit yourself to Boxing Day or Black Friday. There are other sales as well, and of course they do inflate some price and all that, but UK students get 2 days to shop on a major sale. That's a Black Friday and Boxing Day, so which is a good point for anyone who's planning to studying in UK. And we all know that students, but yeah, don't just shop over there. There are multiple things to do in UK. And so yeah, just focus on studies and career and everything over there. In regards to this whole cost of living, accommodation plays a very important role, but accommodation costs may vary from location to location. David, I'll come to you on this question, and I would like to understand that what parameters or what factors one should consider when they are booking their accommodation in UK.
I think this is a really important one, and to seek sort of advice in the area and the location of those. So we always advise looking at the location, looking at certain areas, and look at the safety associated when you're looking at those parameters. The key things when you're looking for accommodation isn't just price. Do not get sucked into thinking that the price is the biggest variant, because it's not, you look at the value associated. So in terms of, for example, IQ, we have an all-inclusive package. So everything, you're getting study spaces, you're getting greater services, and 20, as we mentioned before, 24/7 man security. We also looking at sort of the maintenance opportunities and things like that. So we've got 24/7 maintenance. So all of these things, if you're looking at various properties, you've got to make sure that they suit you. Yes, there's a budgetary thing, but you can get burnt by other providers that are adding things in on top. So if you're looking at location, you can work out how much it's going to cost you to get to campus. The vast majority of IQ, it doesn't cost you anything to get to campus, because it's literally a short walk. And things like you've got laundrettes all on. We've got things like gyms and all these other things, study spaces. When you're looking at the areas of sort of mental health and things like that, you can get isolated in just a separate room. If you're just in a room on your own and you're isolated, it can be quite daunting and very dangerous. So we've got study spaces, we've got lots of different facilities, like and we run a lot of events as well. So all of the facilities, things like social gatherings, social spaces. We've got table tennis tables, we've got gyms, we've got barbecue areas. All of these sort of things that the student will be looking for, and they're nice to have, but they are actually used. And there's more and more universities that are looking to create group study environments, and we have adapted a lot of our facilities to look at the group study environments. But coming back to the initial part of that, is what are the things you're looking at? I would look at the cancellation policy of that accommodation. I would look at are they flexible? There was a question that came up, if we go into lockdown, can I stay in the accommodation? Yes, for us it's a yes. We looked after every student whilst in lockdown. These are absolutely fundamentals that you need to be aware of. So it's not, my biggest advice wouldn't be don't just filter on the cheapest, because actually it's not necessarily the best value.
Right. So the recreational activities and areas are open at IQ properties? Sorry, can you recreational areas are open at IQ University, like accommodation, like your gym and others? Clubs.
Absolutely, yeah. We when we went into lockdown, obviously we secured those areas, and you couldn't go into those areas and things like that. But we are back to a relative normality. We do ask students obviously to sanitize their hands in and out and stuff like that. But there's no restrictions on gatherings at the moment. And just to be aware, when a student is, when you're coming in from India to the UK now, yes, you do have to get a PCR test, but they're 3-hour PCR tests at Heathrow Airport and all the other airports. So as long as you are vaccinated and you get your PCR test, you don't need to quarantine. So these are real key things for any students that are coming for January. I'm getting asked about, can we quarantine stuff? We allow people to quarantine in our places, and we look after them. We set up bedding packs and kitchen packs and stuff like that with them. But the vast majority don't need to do that now, because they're vaccinated and they've got the PCR test within a 3-hour period. So there's a lot of key things that are sort of making sure that the students and international students are welcomed and looked after when they first come.
Great. This is an information for attendees. Guys, it's already 5. If you have any question, please start sharing in Q&A or chat box. We'll be happy to answer. And I would like to come back to you, David, again. So there is always, I'll say there is always a choice between, student accommodations and private apartments. So can you just enlighten us why student accommodation is better than private apartments?
Okay, so the general consensus in the domestic UK market is that you start off in halls of residence, and it's your rite of passage to go and get a house with your mates, 5-bed, 6-bed, 7-bed house with your mates, and then you sort of live your student life from there. What we find is many students come as first years to us Some have go to we call HMO houses with private landlords, and then they come back very quickly. The reason why they come back very quickly is the prices can be deceiving, and security on contracts is a challenge sometimes. I mentioned that, you know, with IQ we've got 24/7 man security. You do not get that in a house. You don't get security on your contract when you go, if God willing there's another lockdown and stuff like that. Those landlords will not give you your money back. I will guarantee you that. You won't have the facilities in a house of multiple occupants that you have in PBSA. You won't have the social spaces, the social gatherings. You won't have the trained staff with that are vigilant and looking at your well-being. It's a minefield of, you know, you could get lucky and get a great landlord and live with some great people, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Right.
And the key thing is the all-inclusive prices with PBSA, especially IQ. It's an all-inclusive price. You've got the fastest Wi-Fi. You've got you don't have to pay for television. You don't have to pay for gas, electrics, waters, all of that sort of stuff. It's all looked after. So just look at the worst case scenario. If you're you go into a private landlord, will they look after you? Is it a secure area? If you go into lockdown, will they financially look after you? Will they look after the health and well-being? All of these things are so important, and that's why more and more people are looking to PBSA rather than private landlords.
Right. Shraddha, I would like you to add few benefits of student housing.
I think David pretty much covered it all, but you know, I think one of the points that I definitely agree with is, of course, the safety, because we have a lot of undergraduate students staying there too, and with a landlord, there are limitations to you know, how much you can work things out with them, because at the end of the day, these are private flats and apartments that are you know, entirely managed by landlords. And one of the things that, you know, students should know is that, you know, with a student accommodation, you know, there's COVID, there's a lockdown, there's, you know, any difficulty at all, the property does support you in every way that they can. With a private property, there are limitations to how much support you might get from the landlord, because, you know, I'm sure Nauman has a lot to say, considering he's been in the UK, he's been a student there. But as someone who's spoken to a lot of students over the years and their experiences of living in private apartments, I think a student accommodation is always a safer haven. It's always, you know, there's a management there. You know, every property has a management, and particularly with international students, there's even more support, you know, because these are students who are coming from other countries and they may be clueless about a lot of things, and there's a management in place that you can go to whenever you have a problem, which is clearly something that's you know, that's not there with private accommodations. So yes, I mean, definitely a go for student accommodation. Nauman,
Right.
would you like to add?
Yeah.
I would totally agree with that. The one thing I would add as well is, can you imagine if you're in the middle of the night and suddenly there's a gas leak, or the water goes, or the heating goes off and things like that? Will your private landlord be coming through in the middle of the night to fix that? The answer is possibly not. So I can't speak on behalf of all private landlords, obviously, and there's some fantastic ones out there, don't get me wrong. But I think if you are looking to come for the first time and you don't know the areas so well and everything else, I would always go on the safe option. And lest we forget, the pricing is always going to be lower for private landlords, because then they will then charge you for every other amenity, every other bill and everything else. So if you're looking to try to save £50 a week or £20 a week, you're not saving that at all. So just be very vigilant and aware of that.
So I think your say will be completely supported by Nauman. Nauman has a very interesting story of his own accommodation. Nauman?
Yeah, actually, completely agree with what David said. Completely, because I started actually, David. I started with Fenton House, which was in Sheffield, which is under IQ accommodation.
It
So
is a fantastic place. Fantastic.
a very fantastic place, and trust me, it's like the very important thing which I think none of us highlighted is a lot of students from different parts of the world will be there in the student accommodation, and you will share the social space with them. The pool area, the table tennis, or we in Fenton House we had a theater also. So it was a mini theater in there, so which we were able to share with a lot of Vietnamese students, and I saw Vietnamese movies. So it's altogether a different experience, and you get to learn a lot of other cultures also. But keeping that aside, I definitely second, there was always a man security, always. I never saw the desk empty or the guards are not there or something. So it was completely safe. I shifted to a private accommodation also when we made friends and we wanted to stay together. And again, the like David said, uh, the landlord was fine. Landlord was very good, but again, it is not possible to get that kind of service from private accommodation. And also to add, this the price was less for a month. The price was less, but again, then you will have to pay for gas, electricity, internet, and all these things piles up a lot, and you will not understand, you will end up paying more. And specifically, if the place is a bit old and it has an older gas equipment, it will cost you a bomb. So all these things are matters a lot if you go for a private accommodation. And uh, staying with student accommodation also has other perks, like which I think is very important for international students. We need to show a guarantor in UK if we want to go for a private accommodation, and usually private accommodations ask for a UK guarantor, which you might not have, or then you will have to pay all the amount altogether, the whole amount for the whole tenure altogether. And if you don't like the accommodation, you will have to end up staying over there only. Also, the deposit is quite risky, so you might or might not get the deposit back if some way or the other you have damaged one single property. Like even if a chair is broken, you can the whole amount can get deducted. So that is not the case with student accommodation. And I personally, I didn't book it when I went there, which is not the right thing to do. You should always book your accommodation prior leaving to the UK. But I went there. I went to the office of Fenton House, and I spoke to them. They were very fine. They asked me for a guarantor because they wanted some guarantor. I didn't have to pay the complete fee of the accommodation. That was it, which was in different installments, which was very feasible. And they just asked for a guarantor, and I said I don't have any guarantor in UK. So they were like, it's completely fine, you can share your guarantor from your own country also. So this is like one of the biggest advantage of going for student accommodation in UK. I think students must choose, at least for the first year, if they're going for 2-3 years, must choose student accommodation and experience that. And do not change your decision of going to private accommodation on the basis of price, because price will definitely come up to the same amount.
Right.
I'm glad
Rightly
you
said,
brought that
Oman.
up.
Yeah, David, you want to add?
I'm just saying, I'm really pleased with that story, because it obviously shows that IQ, we do look after the students. You got lucky to get accommodation at that time, I have to
Yes,
say.
yes. And,
So-
David, one more thing which I
Curly.
forgot to highlight. Me and my friends of different accommodations, we went off to private accommodation, and then none of us liked it. Not because the landlord was not good, or because it got very expensive, and someone or the other had to top up the gas, and it was like you need to go in the attic, and no, everyone, all the others were scared to go in the attic. So every time it was me going in the attic and topping up the gas and stuff. So we all were like fed up of this accommodation, and I came back to Fenton House and I asked them if I can get 2 or 3 rooms on the same floor, so that we all can still stay together, but in different rooms.
Right.
And that was possible.
That's one thing I was going to
Right.
add.
Yeah, that was possible.
So we also, just to add to that point, you can book a whole flat with us.
Yeah.
So via University Living, they can, we have flats. So we have called en suites or studio. Studio apartments are apartments where you've got a kitchen, lounge area, and your bedroom in one self-contained place. Or you can have an ensuite where you've got you can have 2-bed, 3-bed, 4-bed, up to 7-bed flats where you've got your private bed with a lock and door and everything else, but then you've got a kitchen and a shared kitchen area, so you can book with friends and you can book as a group. So that's an important piece.
Yeah, so that's a great point if you're traveling with your friends for studies. Now we'll start with Q&A. I'm sorry, I'm running 12 minutes late, but if there's any question, please share in the Q&A or chat box. Just in case if we are unable to answer a question during this process, we'll be happy to address it directly to the university representatives or the accommodation partner, and we'll reach out back to you. Rachita, I believe. Okay, so Rachita, I think there's some issue. Rachita will rejoin. The first question that we have, and I think a couple of people have asked the same question, is that how long does it take to get a confirmation of acceptance of admission from universities? Mishi, would you like to address this?
Sorry, this was regarding acceptance, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So for postgraduate applications, it can take between 3 to 4 weeks. And during busy times, and especially when our students tend to apply late, it can take slightly longer. Yeah.
Okay. Anushri, do you have a separate process, or Noman, do you have a separate process? Or
No, we have the same. So 48 hours after you've submitted all of your documents, which should include your initial deposit, and it has to be cleared into the university bank account, plus your CAS questionnaire and financial documents. We do require students to submit their financial documents, the same ones they're planning to use for visa procedures as well.
Yeah, so we do have a couple of questions with regard to the visa as well. I know that you guys are UniRes, but if you have any information for these students who want to understand that what kind of documents are required for visa, or how many days does it take to process a visa for us international student, Noman, would you like to address it, because you yourself have been into that shoe?
So I'm not speaking as a rep now, I'm speaking as a student, because we are not allowed to consult students on visa related queries.
Okay.
We have visa experts in the university itself. We direct them to the visa experts and they answer. But as a student, as a ex-student, I would say around 15 days maximum, not working without. So usually they say 15 working days. Depends upon when you're applying also. Like at this point of time, there are huge volumes of application going for visa, so it might take time. But yeah, if you're well prepared, you have everything in place, then I think maintain the funds for at least 28 days or go for a loan. These are the two options. And then you can apply and you can get visa in around 15 days maximum. And there are different options available, like priority, super priority. So if one goes for a priority visa, can get the visa in 5 days, the results of the visa in 5 days, and super priority gives it in 24 hours, which from my experience, I wouldn't say is possible every time, but yeah, within 2 days at least. And and yeah, this usually it's very simple, and I think most of the students, they apply through consultants. So there are consultants also guiding them, and so somewhere or the other, they will surely get some kind of guidance for the visa.
So guys, yeah, Mishi, you want to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to
here. So having dealt with students over the years, I think when it comes to the CAS is a very crucial document. In the visa process, because all the information that goes in there is verified and has to be sort of to the point, including the passport details and the details of the students. And so it also depends on when in the cycle you're applying for for the CAS. If it's very close to the intake, of course, the universities are very busy with multiple things at that time, and there might be a delay in receiving the CAS. But it also sort of depends on the cycle. But as Norman very rightly said, that normally it doesn't take more than 15 to 20 days. But the reason I felt the need to address this question is because we do receive a lot of messages from students saying, "Oh, we haven't received our CAS. what do we do? We're sort of stuck in the process. But I think one thing that students do need to understand is that because it's a very crucial document, of course, one can always, everybody, I think most of the students apply through their consultants, and universities do try their best to sort of release the CAS letters as soon as they can. A simple follow-up email kind of does work, but eventually, it comes within 15 to 20 days.
Right. Mishi, you wanted to add something to this, please?
Yes, I just wanted to say that there is gov.co.uk, which is an absolute useful resource. You can find a lot of information around your budgeting, immigration, documents required, etc. And I think most universities have their own independent, they have their own website as well, where they have these details, and just requires a little bit more research and they can find it. Yeah.
Great. We have another question in regards to Bachelor in Cybersecurity course. The students want to know that which of the 3 universities which are present over there is maybe providing this course at a good course, and what kind of scholarship are provided for international student. Anushri, would you like to take it?
Sorry, this course is not available at Brighton.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Noman, you wanted to address this.
Yeah, we have the course, and I think it's a very wise option of going for cybersecurity at the initial stage, like the undergraduate stage itself, because I think this is supposed to be replicated in India also. I feel if we can do that, and we do have that course. The course is there for around £17,000. I need to check that, but yeah, somewhere around £17,000, and we get we offer scholarships also. So right now we are offering scholarship to all the Indian students, £1,600 scholarship in the first year. So it's there. I will try to share the link also in the chat, so that the student can have a look at it. But yeah, definitely go for, if you're thinking for going for an undergraduate, and if you're privileged to afford it, please go and do it, because I have done my undergraduate here and postgraduate over there. So I can surely say there's a huge difference in education, and it will help you out a lot.
Great. Anushri, I'll come to you on this. I understand that cybersecurity is not a course over there, but which course would you recommend from Brighton, like as the best course, and what kind of little information on the scholarship part?
So as a university, we have a number of programs to offer to students. We have roughly 500 courses that we offer at undergraduate as well as postgraduate levels. In terms of the most popular courses at Brighton, as I mentioned, we do have pharmacy. Other options that students that are generally popular with Indian students include physiotherapy. We offer advanced programs and then super specialized programs in physiotherapy, occupational therapy, even podiatry. Then we have our general marketing and management related programs, but we do offer a number of programs related to fashion and design, and then architecture and interior design. So this is one of our strengths at Brighton. We're known for these particular programs at Brighton. So if any student who's looking for these programs, I would encourage them to check out our university website. Our tuition fees are quite budgeted. So in terms of undergraduate students, you might be looking at a tuition fee approximately between, say, £12,000 yearly to a maximum of £15,000. For postgraduate students, our courses start at £15,000. And of course, MBA programs are a little higher price because they are more executive MBAs that we are offering. The scholarships that we offer to all international students are worth a maximum of £2,500. And the eligibility criteria is that you need to write a scholarship essay, and then you also need to be an offer holder at Brighton. So only once you're an offer holder can you start submitting your scholarship applications. And we have like 2-3 questions that we ask students, like why should we give you the scholarship and how would you benefit from the scholarship? So as long as you're concise and precise with your answers, I'm sure you would be able to achieve some scholarship at least at Brighton.
Great. David, we do get a couple of questions on our community channels about the safety protocols which are placed at accommodation. I know you have already addressed this, but just in respect to the current scenario and the current variant, if you just share like in the pointers with the students who are there and want to know about this.
Yeah, I mean, overall, there is, we always look at the government guidelines, and where we go above and beyond the government guidelines because we are sort of looking after the student well-being at the end of the day. But overall, we sort of look at sort of mask wearing, sanitization of hands. We don't create big gatherings. We have smaller gatherings, but the vast majority of students now are vaccinated, and they are, we have to treat people with respect, and we have to make their own decisions, and that's a very important part of becoming adults and treating people with that level of understanding, and as long as they're educated effectively into what you can do, what you can't do, all of these sort of things, it's important as a sort of an accommodation operator that we are giving the life skills to those students and just making sure that they are aware of what you can and can't do and what's against the law, what's not against the law. It's like anything else, but we've put in sort of lots of different protocols that we've sort of mentioned before, but the key sort of aspect of sort of the security is very, very important to us. And we sort of talked about the mental health of students and that. We have gone above and beyond, and we will continue to go above and beyond to put this as the number one thing that we would be making sure. So we always want to make sure that the international students are comfortable. The stresses and strains that are on an international student, a student coming from India, from the pressures from the family, totally different environment coming to fit in, pressures on being able to socially fit in, to be able to get your exam results, all of these, it's immense. And you throw in that being isolated in a room on your own, wow, that's really, really quite tough. So we are keeping out for all of that, and we work very closely with all the universities. And as I mentioned before, we work with Headspace, Relate, Shout, and Ethical Angels, where we have 24/7 helplines, and all our teams are trained to identify triggers that would signify somebody is having a problem, whether it be in isolation, whether they're slightly withdrawn. It might be signs of stress. All of these sort of things that are absolutely vital for us, and we sort of look after that student every step of the way.
Right. Great. So we are almost at the end of the session. I would request anyone who has any other further question, and if you just by any chance you have missed it right now to ask us something, you can reach out to University Living at admin@universityliving.com. I've shared the email address in the chat box, and we will be happy to connect you with the uni reps or the accommodation partner in regards to that question. Before we just end this whole call, if in just one minute, if you want to share some wisdom words with the attendees. David, you want to start? Quick minutes.
What I would say is the UK is a very safe place to come. It also, as I mentioned, it's a land of opportunity. If you work hard, you will get your reward. I know thousands of students that have started off with their undergrad courses or postgrad courses, and they've made some fantastic headway. They've created themselves a fantastic foundation for their life. They've had great experience as well. And the UK is very, very welcoming and a very safe place to come. So if you are thinking about coming, just go for it. Make sure you plan, prepare, and also book early.
Book early, right?
Book early, and
Right.
make sure you're choosing wisely. But yeah, seek advice through University Living, through accommodation, and seek advice for the education agencies that are available to be able to get the right courses.
Great. Mishi?
Thanks, Shefali. I would just sum it up by the great British motto, that is, keep calm and carry on. Don't lose the sight of your goal. I mean, for those of you who want to better their life, get better prospects, I think UK is a brilliant place to explore all aspects of your student life and your career aspects as well. So good luck to all those who are joining us for 2022. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Anushri?
Just would like to remind students to plan well in advance, whether it's the September intake, whether it's the January intake, for not just accommodations, but for university, for scholarships, everything, even your visas. Don't keep things on the back burner and just keep procrastinating, thinking things will get resolved because you have somebody to hold your hand, your efforts will be more important than the individual who's helping you throughout the process. This
Right.
also obviously includes for applying placements and jobs once you're closer to your graduation.
Correct. Noman, quickly, just 1 minute because we are almost on the time.
Yeah, I just want to wish all of you guys who are applying, wish you all the very best for your application and for your future endeavors as well. And yeah, we all hope to see you all somewhere in UK.
Great. Shraddha?
Well, I think to sum it up, Shefali, first, thank you to the panelists and the students as well for
Yeah.
taking out the time to attend this session. But, on an end note, I would just like to say that, University Living is going to try a level best to accommodate all the students with the best of properties. And we have properties like IQ that are extremely supportive and beautiful properties. And we would want you to avail, the advantage of being able to book with these properties. So please reach out to us, and we're more than happy to assist you with the rest of your journey.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, everyone. And as it is already established, UK is well prepared. Don't just, hold your programs. If you want to go study abroad in UK specifically, just go ahead, start preparing everything, plan everything out, and you can reach us out to us in case of anything in regards to, want to connect with someone from the university, the panelists who are present over here. You want to connect with the accommodation one, David is here. We will be happy to connect you guys with them. So thank you, guys. Thank you so much again for joining us, for taking out time from your schedule. Hopefully we'll be seeing you soon in some other panel soon. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.